So welcome back to our Parenting Today class. This is week 2, part 2 of our lecture series. We're going to discuss parenting theories in this part of the journey. And we're going to focus primarily for the next few minutes on Diana Baumrind. She was born in 1927 and is still alive and well today, as far as I know. She is one of the most influential parenting theorists of modern day times. And she was actually the first to use scientific data to support theory of parenting styles. So she's also has done some longitudinal studies of children, so she's been able to follow different children and families over time to sort of see how her different theories have shaken out. Have they stood the test of time? So the major longitudinal study that she did followed children from preschool to age 10, 15, and then followed up once again when the children were in their early 20s. She studied children in multiple settings and has gathered her data for her research using observation as well as interviews. And Diana Baumrind's theory of parenting style really demonstrates two important aspects of parental control. That first aspect being responsiveness. That's showing warmth and support and recognizing that each child has unique characteristics and needs. That second aspect is known as demandingness. So that's that behavioral control through discipline, supervision, and confrontation. And it teaches children how to be members of the family, as well as helps them to assimilate or learn how to be members of society as well, which is another important aspect of parenting, right? We think about Baumrind's theory of parenting and style. She's essentially came up with 4 different parenting styles. And these parenting styles essentially predict how well children function socially, academically, and developmentally. These parenting styles can also be used to predict problem behavior in children and can be used to predict things like interaction with the justice system, law enforcement. The first pattern of parenting that we're going to explore is authoritative parenting. And through research, Dr. Baumrind found this authoritative parenting style to be most beneficial. It is really described as a warm but firm control over a child's behavior. It promotes independence and individuality, but it also sets really firm boundaries in terms of behavior and expectations, what is appropriate, what's not appropriate, at an age-appropriate level. It can be described as rational, flexible, attentive, and good communication. The rights of children change over time. Children are viewed as self-reliant, confident, exploratory, and socially responsible. But the parents really take that authoritative stance and are really help guiding children, throughout the developmental process. The authoritarian style or pattern of parenting is described by Diana Baumrind as being too harsh. So there's these sort of arbitrary rules. It's very power-oriented, extremely punitive or punishing. It really disregards a child's individuality and, it places these roles on children that are very rigid. There's a lot of control without really nurturance or affection. And research done by Dr. Baumrind tells us that children that come from authoritarian homes generally turn out to be unhappy, withdrawn, distrustful, and lower achievers. So there's another style of parenting that we're going to explore. It's founded by Dr. Baumrind. This style is named permissive. So a permissive parent essentially sets no limits or very little limits on their children. And these parents can be described as warm and loving, but really give the child too much freedom. They're not setting appropriate boundaries. They cave into children's impulses. They don't expect children to demonstrate maturity. Children grow into adults who are immature, really dependent on their parents, and not high achievers. So another style of parenting that's described in Dr. Baumrein's pattern of parenting constellation is uninvolved parents. So these parents can be described as detached and distant. They may provide for their child's basic needs, but they're emotionally unavailable and distant and really provide little or no supervision. But they can really be sort of suppressing or stuffing their feelings, in particular anger, and it really just tends to build until they may explode on their child. So uninvolved parents really don't make much in terms of demands or expectations placed on their children. They may intentionally avoid their children, maybe retreat into their own bedrooms or computer screens at night, leave children with lots of time unsupervised. Uninvolved parents tend to be really overwhelmed by their own problems, and children really learn out of their survival needs. They learn to depend on themselves. These children can often be described as withdrawn, anxious, or stressed due to that lack of parental support. And there's a greater risk for delinquency and substance abuse among these children due to the fact that their parents are basically uninvolved. The next theorist that we're going to talk about is Ellen Galinsky, and she developed a theory of parenting stages. And Dr. Galinsky's theory parallels Erikson's stage theory of psychosocial development. You remember it's that 8-stage theory that we talked about last week, week 1 of our course. But Dr. Galinsky really was a very culturally competent theorist that really made the theorists or the theory that she studied culturally competent and diverse, because she studied hundreds of parents of all ages, races, socioeconomic status, and religion. And through this really culturally competent, diverse study, she found that there were 6 central themes in parenting. These are these 6 central themes that we're going to be discussing in depth. So it's really starting with pregnancy and working our way through up early adulthood when we look through this lens that Dr. Galinsky explored or founded for us here. And the first stage that Dr. Galinsky explores is stage 1, which is called image making. And this occurs during pregnancy. Parents really imagine what it will be like to be parents. Really can be very fantasy based, not based in reality. Lots of times parents have really romantic ideas of what it will be like to be a parent, not really thinking about all of those sleepless nights or the times that they're going to be up several times during the night, responding to children's cries. This is a real preparation period. And Dr. Galinsky's stage 2 of parenting theory is called the nurturing stage. This occurs between the birth of a child up until that child is approximately 18 to 24 months of age. And this is the stage where parents really reconcile that image-making stage with hardcore reality. So parents are finding that they need to adjust their priorities when the child enters their lives. This is a period of attachment, hopefully secure attachment, that's formed through bonding and through touching and caring for the child. Dr. Galinsky's third stage is called the authority stage, and that takes place between the ages of 2 to 5 years during childhood. This is where children begin to question authority. And this is oftentimes the very first time where a parent and child experience conflict. Parents decide how they're going to set and enforce rules with consequences, and they really grapple with feelings of control versus lack of control. So many people, if you've ever spent time with a 2-year-old or a child anywhere between the ages of approximately 18 months to about 3 years of age. This is an age where temper tantrums really tend to rear their ugly head. The word no starts to become a child's most often used and favorite word, and it can be really challenging for parents. Stage 4, according to Dr. Galinsky, is dubbed the interpretive stage, and that lasts from preschool up until adolescence, and that's when children and parents begin to separate, and the children begin to form separate identities for themselves, so separate from their parents, separate from their family of origin. And the child has other influences and begins to form an image of what a parent should be. And during this stage, parents really must help guide the child and help the child really interpret the world. Really, it's important in terms of the environment. Peers play a huge role in this particular stage, and parents must really determine when to step in versus encouraging autonomy. It could be something that's extremely difficult for those of you that are parents. In stage number 5, according to Galinsky, it's called the interdependent stage, and this stage consists primarily of the teenage years. There's really dramatic physical changes that are hormonally based that take place during these years. And Galinsky talks about these years as being years where power is shared between parent and child. So families really revisit limit setting of the authority stage. It's more collaborative. Parents communicate and give advice. Oftentimes, we can see those temper tantrums that we thought we may have outgrown or outlived as parents, during that early toddler stage. We may see those sort of temper tantrums reemerging as a child enters adolescence, that defiance. So it's really important as a parent or as someone who's working with parents to really help get some support to learn how to navigate these challenges in these years and set boundaries with children. So Dr. Galinsky's stage 6 is called the departure stage. It's early adulthood. It's when that child separates from parents. And most parents really start to evaluate at this time whether or not they did a good job. And they form a new connection with the child. So it's important when we talk about this stage too, we bring this stage on up to today's standards, the year 2016, the recession that we've been in, the economic downturn, all of the forces that we're in. We're seeing that many kids, or early adults rather, that are in this departure stage, there's what's called a boomerang phenomenon, and due to the lack of ability to be able to achieve financial independence, lots of young adults in this stage find themselves moving back in with their parents. Instead of leaving the nest, they're coming back into the nest. So this right here is just a graphic that sketches out Galinsky's stage. You definitely want to keep this one in mind because we're going to definitely see this stage on our quiz, which is going to be held during week number 2 here. And now we're going to shift our focus very gently to the historical perspectives on childhood. We're going to go all the way back to ancient Egypt, which is approximately 3000 to 100 or 1000 rather BCE. And during these ancient Egyptian times, parenting was very child-centered, but childhood was rather brief. So children were breastfed approximately until 3 years of age, and by the time children were about 5 to 6 years of age, children began training for adult jobs. Now shifting our focus a bit, going to children of ancient Greece, which was between the years of 490 to 323 BCE, children were considered property, basically chattel. So newborns could be rejected on the basis of gender or deformity and left to die of exposure. So really harsh conditions during those years, right? But once children were accepted, parents were attentive and comforting to the child overall. So they recognized in ancient Greece that children developed in phases. The first stage, infantia, which is between the ages of 6 to 7 years, puertia, between the ages of 7 to 12 years for girls, 7 to 14 years for boys, and adolescence between the ages of 12 to 21 for girls, and 14 to 21 years of age for boys. And during the Middle Ages, children were allowed to play and be children until they were approximately 6 to 7 years of age. And in the Middle Ages, at the age of 7, children were considered to be old enough to really enter into a contract. So at the age of 7 onward, children were expected to start learning and working, going to school, learning a trade. They had lots of adult role expectations placed upon them at a very early age of 7. So we're going to end part 2, and I will see you guys in a few moments when we begin week 2, part 3 of our lecture series.